Character profile of Russia's most feared commander, General Armageddon. Even before the appointment of the ruthless veteran, General Sergey Surovikin, as commander of the Russian forces in Ukraine, Surovikin had earned a name for brutality and extra callousness in fighting Russian wars, both in Chechnya and Syria. With Surovikin's command, Russian troops have taken to brutally attacking civilian targets in Kyiv, Ukraine. Is it not rather spontaneous that the recent dramatic escalation in the war is happening at a time when a new commander of the Russian armed forces was appointed? In today's video, we shall look into the character profile of Russia's most feared commander, popularly known as General Armageddon. So grab a snack, sit tight, and watch this video till the end. Do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get juicy content like this all the time and hit the notification bell to get updates. Alright, here goes. Part 1. The early career of Surovikin. The fearsome and mean commander, Surovikin, began his military career with the Soviet Army in the 1980s. As a young lieutenant, he was named an infantry platoon commander. Later on, when he also claimed the position of Air Force Chief, it drew mixed reaction in the ranks because it marked the first time that the job was given to an infantry officer. Soon enough, Surovikin would find himself in the center of a political storm in 1991. A mid-ranking officer, 24 years of age, with the coup staged in August of that year and led by members of the Communist Party's old guard, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev was ousted briefly and troops were sent into Moscow to impose a state of emergency. Surovikin indeed led one of the mechanized infantry battalions from a unit of Russia's 2nd Guards Motor Rifle Division known as the Taman Guards that swarmed into a central Moscow tunnel after midnight. Popular resistance mounted quickly against the troops, and in the final hours of the 3-day coup, angered protesters waylaid the armored convoy led by Surovikin, attempting to set some of the vehicles ablaze. In a chaotic melee, 2 protesters were shot and a 3rd was crushed to death by an armored vehicle. This indeed would mark the beginning of Surovikin's ruthless career. Nonetheless, the coup collapsed later that day and Surovikin was quickly arrested. He spent 7 months behind bars before he was eventually acquitted and even promoted to the rank of major, as investigators concluded that he was only fulfilling his duties and the bloody altercation with the protesters was more or less his wherewithal to quelling the situation. Part 2. The rocky moment in Surovikin's career. In the year 1995, while Surovikin was studying at a military academy, he was convicted of illegal possession and trafficking of firearms. With this, Surovikin was sentenced to a year in prison, but the conviction was reversed quickly, and he rose steadily through the ranks of commanding units deployed to the former Soviet Republic of Tajikistan, leading troops sent to Chechnya, and serving at other posts across Russia. Surovikin was certainly not the sort of superior endeared to his subordinates. His temper was always turbulent and raging. According to the Russian media, one of the officers under Surovikin had complained to prosecutors that the general had beaten him up, after becoming very angry over how he voted in parliamentary elections. Another subordinate was said to have shot himself down. In either case, investigators found no wrongdoing on Surovikin. Part 3. Surovikin's escapades during the Second Russian-Chechen War. During the period of the Chechen War, Surovikin was remembered for promising to destroy 3 Chechen fighters for every Russian soldier killed. While the veracity of the statement cannot be confirmed, it appears to reflect Surovikin's ruthless and destructive approach. On the 26th of August in 2009, Russian troops acknowledged bombing raids in Chechnya. The Russian airstrikes were reported to have forced at least 100,000 Chechens to flee their homes to safety. Furthermore, a bus filled with refugees was reportedly hit by a Russian tank shell, killing at least 11 civilians. Part 4. Surovikin's track record in Syria. Chechnya and Syria happen to be 2 of the territories where the Russian armed forces have been deeply involved in spreading terror in the war conflicts, with scenarios where Sergey Surovikin showed his terrible character on the battlefield during Russia's military offensives. With the reputation of ruthlessness earned by General Sergey Surovikin, he became known to some as the Butcher of Syria. In 2017, Surovikin was appointed commander of Russian forces in Syria, going on to lead the Russian mission. Decorated as a hero of Russia, even though accused in some quarters of allegedly employing controversial tactics, such as indiscriminate bombing against anti-government fighters. In November 2017, he became Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Air Force and was seen by various humanitarian organizations as responsible for the destruction from the air of much of the Syrian city of Aleppo. To conclude the year 2017, he received the decoration as a Hero of Russia for courage and heroism shown in the performance of military duty in the Syrian Arab Republic. The New York Times quoted a Human Rights Watch report from 2020, putting Surovikin among the military leaders who might have had command responsibility for human rights violations in Syria. Indeed, Surovikin was purely out to defend Russia's interests in Syria by launching dozens of air and ground attacks on civilian objects and infrastructure. The Human Rights Watch report further claims that Russian forces under his command struck Syrian homes, schools, healthcare facilities, and markets. These core places where civilians stay to live, work, and study. Surovikin earned the grim nickname General Armageddon from his colleagues, having noticed his hardline and unorthodox approach to waging war. Part 5. Surovikin's recent appointment as commander of the Russian troops in Ukraine. On Saturday, the 8th of October 2022, Surovikin was appointed the top commander of troops stationed in Ukraine, replacing Alexander Dvornikov. Following his ruthless and cruel career in war situations, Surovikin's recent appointment immediately translated into Russia's unleashing of missiles on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, on Monday. Russia had not attacked the city of Kyiv with missiles since last June, yet immediately Surovikin took over office as head of Russian operations on Ukrainian territory, there came an overwhelming attack, not only in Kyiv, but in several other Ukrainian cities as Dnipro, Lviv, and Zaporizhzhia. Prior to Surovikin's recent appointment, the Russian army suffered several setbacks in Ukrainian territory. This caused the president, Vladimir Putin, some nervousness as he had to resort to a partial military mobilization of part of the population to make up for the casualties and compensate for the withdrawals in some areas of Ukraine in the face of the putsch by Ukrainian troops. All these problems led Putin to replace Dvornikov with Surovikin, known for his reputation of brutality in warfare, as seen in his record during the Chechen and Syrian wars. Among the setbacks suffered by the Russian army was the attack on the Kerch Bridge, one of Russia's key infrastructures for communication with the Crimean Peninsula. This served as a springboard for Russia's counterattack against Ukraine, mainly on its capital. There was further internal criticism against Russia's military leadership as regards the conduct of the war. Both Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the private military company Wagner, and Ramzan Kadyrov, a pro-Russian Chechen leader also involved in the Ukrainian war, raised their voices to harshly criticize the evolution of Russian troops on the ground. Against this backdrop, Vladimir Putin saw it fit to toss the mantle of leadership of the Russian forces in Ukraine in the hands of Sergey Surovikin, since he had a host of track records in brutal military campaigns. With immediate effect, Surovikin became commander of the Special Operations Forces in Ukraine. Kadyrov himself praised the appointment with an update on his Telegram channel, saying that he, Surovikin, would correct the mistakes of the military operation, and that Russian forces are now in good hands. Indeed, Surovikin had good knowledge of the Ukrainian war. Before taking command of Russian troops, he was in charge of the southern flank military divisions on Ukrainian territory. Part 6. Who is Surovikin? Born in Novosibirsk, Siberia, 56 years ago, Surovikin has been in the Russian army since 1982 and studied at the Higher College of the Combined Arms Command in Omsk, the Front's Military Academy, and the General Staff Academy. He successfully led Kremlin troops in Syria and was subsequently appointed to command the Russian aerospace forces. He fought in Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Chechnya, and later in Syria. In recognition of his military achievements in Syria, President Putin awarded him the rank of general in the army. Before the Ukrainian war began, he had occupied a range of duties in the Russian military and had been considered a potential chief of the general staff, the overall head of all wings of the armed forces. While from the Russian perspective, Surovikin is seen as no more than a tough and demanding military leader, to the rest of the world, he carries a grim reputation for ruthlessness, cruelty, and brutality. Part 7. Can Surovikin fix Russia's problems in the war? Gen Surovikin's appointment indeed came at a point when the media had been recording successes for Ukrainian forces, owing to several setbacks the Russian military was facing, ranging from manpower to munition shortages. This way, Surovikin's appointment, considering his track record, came in handy to salvage the situation at hand. The New York Times had reported Surovikin's unpopular approach to fighting with missiles and bombers. The real question, however, is would Surovikin really be able to fix Russia's problems in the war? To what extent would his missile-launching strategy be the remedy for Russia's numerous setbacks? The Western media predict that the appointment of Surovikin may not be enough to make any dramatic difference. As quoted by Frederick Hodges on the New York Times, all the problems of the Russian military are institutional, deeply rooted flaws, corruption, lack of readiness. If you have any opinions about the fearsome Russian new commander, Surovikin, make sure to drop them in the comment section below. If you found this video highly informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more contents like this.